Morning, Les. First lesson will just be some warm-up stuff, doing percentages uh, and calculating x's of variables. So we're going to look at about 4 different examples this morning. I'll try to keep the video about 20 minutes or so, and then you can work through Tuesday, Wednesday, before I give you something new, probably be on Thursday, okay? So today we're going to be looking at some basic math skills. So you need a calculator, of course, handy. So get your calculator out. Okay, so the first one I'm going to do is I'm going to do an example of just calculating. Okay, this will be like number 1 in your getting started handout. So basically, you're just going to be using a calculator there. So you might have something like 1.64 times 199.8. So this is just simply carefully using your calculator. So in this case, you just go 1.64 times 199.8, and they might tell you to round it off. So I get 327.672. So if we go to the nearest 10, 327.672. Now that's kind of simple. You just use calculators, but we all have to do that anyway. The harder ones are if they give you little fractions, okay? And they don't necessarily, or if they use brackets. Oops, let me get my book here. There we go. Put it in the proper spot so I can see better. Okay, if they give you a fraction, so they might give you something like 25.2 times like 28 over 75. Okay, if they give you something like that, what you do is you multiply these one and then you divide this one. So you go 25.2 times 28 equal on your calculator, and then you go divided by 75. Okay, so you multiply the top and divide by the bottom. Okay, that's what that line means. Okay, so how you do that in a calculator, you go 25.2 times 28, because those are both on the top. You hit the equal button on your calculator, okay, and then you go divided by 75, and then you hit the equal button again on your calculator, and I get 9.408. Okay, so that's like number 1. Now, writing a percent as a decimal is the second thing they ask. So that's our first one we're going to look at. Our second one is write as a decimal. Okay, so if they say 12.7%. So this means, percent means out of 100. So you divide everything by 100. So you just simply go, take the number 12.7 and you divide it by 100. That's what this percent means, is out of 100. Or you could just move the decimal over 2 to the left, because that's what it does when you divide it. So if you divide that on your calculator, you get 0.127. Okay, and that's like number 2 on your sheets in your workbook. Okay, they might have some decimals. They might say 0.2%. Okay, just because there's a decimal, don't get confused. Treat it the same way. Go 0.2 divided by 100. Okay, and that's going to give you 0.002. Okay, and that's the first two. And And then 3 and 4 are calculated percents of something. So like number 3 and 4, if they say calculating some percent of a number. So this is percent of a number. Okay, how do you do this? Well, this is pretty easy using your calculator again. So let's say they had like 12% of 800. Okay, so what you do is you go, change this to a decimal, you go 12 divided by 100, and this of means times, or multiply, times 800. So we take our calculator, and how we push it in is we go 12 divided by, that's 100, equal times 800, and you get 96. So what we did was go 12 divided by 100, and then we go the equal button, and then we go times 800, and we hit the equal button again. And that gives us 96. That's what you put in your calculator like that. Okay? Okay, don't get confused on number 4. Number 4, they try to make it a little bit harder by putting a decimal in there, but don't, just because it's like 7.7%, you still do the exact same thing. Okay, the other thing we're going to do, and I'm going to flip the page ahead, is in questions like 5 and 6, we have to solve for a variable. So solving for a variable. Okay, this is like number 5 and number 6 on the practice there. Okay, so the first one is the easiest one. So if you have something like solve for n, okay, and so let's say we have 5n equals whatever, let's say 35. Okay, so this is 5n, we want 1n, so we've got to divide both sides by 5. So 5 divided by 5 is 1, so this is 1n equals 35 divided by 5, 7, if you do it on your calculator. Okay. Now, if they give you one like, you have to do the opposite of, if it's like that, you have to divide. If it's like this, say 2 over, or n over 2 equals 4. Okay, if it's on the bottom like that, you have to multiply by 2 on both sides. Okay, so this 2 cancels out this 2, 1 on the top, 1 on the bottom, so that's 1n equals 8, 4 times 2. Okay, so if it's like this, 5n, you got to, if it's with the n, you divide by the number in front. If it's below the n, or x or s, it'll be, then you multiply. Okay, if you have a plus or a minus, like if you have n plus 2 equals 10, like this, if you have to do the opposite of whatever this is. So we want n by itself. We don't want the 2 there, so we have to take it away on both sides, just like a scale. The equals like a scale. So 2 minus 2 is 0, so that's n equals 10 minus 2, which is 8. Okay, for example, if it was the other way around, n minus 2 equals 10. Okay, instead of subtracting a 2, we have to add a 2 to make it 0, right? So we have to add in this case. So that makes that 0. So this is n equals 12. Okay. Now, if they put a number in front of the n, it gives you a two-step problem. Okay, so let's do a couple examples like a two-stepper. So if they have something like 3n minus 12 equals 18. Okay. So what we have to do is, step one is do the opposite of the number. Okay, you want to isolate the 3n by itself. So we're going to do the opposite of whatever the number is with the variable or the letter. So we're going to isolate the 3n. So how do we do that? Well, the opposite of minus 12 is plus 12. So we're going to plus 12 to both sides. So we're adding 12. So this stays there. Minus 12 plus 12, that's going to become a 0, so that's gone. But 18 plus 12, you have to do that on your calculator, and you get 30. Okay, so once you've done that, now you're going to be doing like the simpler questions that we started with earlier. Now you're just going to be dividing, and then step 2 is to divide out the number with the variable. Okay, so what does that look like? Well, 3 divide out the 3 and divide out the 3. So that 3 makes it a 1n. And 10, because 30 divided by 3 is 10. So you might get a couple of them there, like that. Okay, same idea for, let's see what else we got there. I think we'll only do the first 6. Let's do one more on that page. We won't do 1 to 10 because the other ones we will save up for next day. So if they give you a weird one like this, say n divided by 4 plus 2 equals 18. Okay, so again, you got a weird one here. So the first thing is you want to get this n over 4 by itself. So we got to do what the opposite is of this 2 is. This is plus 2, so we have to get rid of it. You have to minus 2, the opposite of that. Minus 2 on both sides. So this stays there. And then minus 2 from 2 gives you a 0, so that's gone. And 18 minus 2, if you do that on the calculator, that's 16. Okay, now you're at this place. Instead of dividing, though, because it's on the bottom, you're going to have to multiply by 4 on both sides. So that's going to get rid of the 4 on both sides. But you got to go 16 times 4 to get n this time. Okay, so if you take your calculator out, you're going to get 64 when you multiply those two. Okay, so that's going to be, I don't know how long that is. Let's take a look here. Let's see here. There it is. Okay, so we're sitting at about 14 and a half. I don't want to go too long on these. So 15 minutes. Okay, so we'll stop there today. So on page 2 and 3 of your workbook, you could do number 1, which we did examples of, number 2, which we did examples of, and number 3 and 4 we did examples of as well. And number 5 and 6. And 6 would be the hardest ones to do because it's these double step ones here. And then 7, 8, 9, 10 will leave for now. So that's what you can work on. And I don't know how fast you're going to be able to work. So I'll say, one period of instruction, that's 15, 20 minutes, then you can work on that. And if you still need Wednesday, we can do that. Let you work through Wednesday. You let me know how it's going. Okay. So I'll post the video up and you can work on those 6 there. And good luck, Les. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask.